Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And shall I say welcome back or shall I say welcome? So let's say both. For those of you who don't remember, my name is Ronelle Blom. I'm the Dean at Da Vinci, and it's my honor to host this event on a monthly basis. I'd also like to welcome some other familiar faces, some faculty members, Lionel, Henry, Ross, who else is here, and so on. So welcome to those people. And then of course the two guests, our speaker, Solis, I'll introduce her now, and Dr. Willem Oosthuizen from Altron, and I'll introduce him as well in a little while. So welcome back. As you know, I think you probably know the system and the process well by now. We always start with a discussion by a student about her work. Hello, welcome. And hopefully her work reflects the things that we're interested in. The innovation, management of innovation, technology, innovation, people and systems, and managerial leadership, and sustainability of business, and all of those wonderful things that we see as core to our programs. So welcome, Solis. Solis Botma, Wood, no? Is that correct? Okay.
Wooden bottom.
Oh, I was going to say. Okay. All right. Okay. She is, even though she's a student, you know, and I love to do this to my students when they come there first. I make them take off their CEO hat and their senior manager hat and their whatever hat they wear, and I make them put on a student hat. Solis, I think you missed that one, but I try and make a student understand that you're a student, you're a scholar, you are an academic. Okay, and it's slightly different from being a CEO. But in this case, Solis is also the founder and managing director of World Trade Experts. She says that she's always an entrepreneur, and she's always been that at heart. She's very creative, very inquisitive, brings numerous opportunities to fruition. She previously worked in the financial, insurance, telecommunications, electricity, information technology, agriculture, and transport and trade sectors. It's a lady with lots of trades. And so Solis is currently doing a PhD in the digitization of industrialists in developing countries. I'll talk about that a little bit more now. She's also actively setting up and running businesses that trade in a wide spectrum of commodities. The main focus is on the sourcing and distribution of produce and commodities across the globe through specialized deals and negotiations between government and businesses. Good luck with that. These commodities include ballistics, safety, non-lethal agricultural and technology solutions. So if that doesn't sound incredibly impressive and intimidating, nothing will. So Solis is going to talk today about her PhD, which is quite advanced, eh, Solis?
No, it's like I need to still do my
your field
my
work.
questionnaire.
Your field work. Okay. Anyway, the title of her PhD is Industry Performance and Digital Disruption, which is really interesting in terms of our context. And she says, unleashing the possibilities for African farmers in the developing world. Now, those two don't seem to want together, but she is going to tell us all about how they do get together. So Solis, the floor is yours. You may remain seated if you want to. We're very informal, but let's welcome Solis this afternoon.
Hi everybody. So yeah, I think I've actually moved into shall we say an entrepreneurial world from a corporate world, and the problem with that I actually lived with, and so I'm kind of a senior person in society already. I've got many children that have grown up, and I grew up on a farm many years ago. And my dad always used to say, if I wanted something, no, we are poor, we don't have money. And like, okay, so it always bugged me tremendously. We have those days, 20,000 Morgan, which is like times 2.1, I think, hectares of land. Yet we are poor. It is like a vast land, but we don't have money. We don't actually have anything. I mean, my dad can't even turn a penny around. And it bugged me for many years. And eventually what happened to the farm was that the farm was actually sold. It's so sad because I just, as an adult, okay, so I grew up as an Afrikaans school where women don't go and farm. The son, who doesn't matter if he's like last in the family, he needs to go farm. If he doesn't farm, then the farm needs to be sold. It was a traditional Afrikaans thing, and yeah, so that farm was then sold. So then, after all of these years of working in corporates, I did a lot of work as a consultant, a lot of project management work, a whole lot of IT systems development, systems integration, very much into the technology space. My love for technology and for agriculture just started to merge, because the two worlds need to get together, I believe. And then I want to explore or inquire whether the technology world, the digitization, the digital disruption, technology can actually make a difference in agriculture. And especially the study is about the African continent. I'm taking it Africa-wide. It is about agricultural industry. It's about the disruptive technology and innovative technologies within the agricultural space. And how will the two marry, or how will one be able to unleash possibilities in the agricultural world through this vehicle? So I think you asked me many questions in that email. I tried to talk about them, but I didn't only look at Africa in the beginning, because so there are some studies done about African countries, a whole lot of commercial studies that have been done, but not a lot around technology studies. The same thing. So technology is a little bit sparse. I mean, I'm not talking about farming equipment. I'm talking about technology as a whole in terms of disruption. So you can make a plow, and the donkey can pull the plow, or the tractor can pull it, or the plow can ride by itself. But you actually we don't think about the technology component that you don't physically see, that are not mechanized. That is not is quite sparse. So I started looking around at other continents, like for instance, if you look at India. So, for an example, in India, platforms are used, but the problem with those kinds of the platforms they're using in India is that they actually have a language barrier. So the language in India is not an English common language. They have very, very vast and different types of languages, especially for the people that are living in rural states, in rural statuses. And we have a similar kind of issue actually in Africa, because here we actually have a lot of the farming community and people that are producing produce are in rural areas, and they also don't have huge amounts of education. They're not, some of them are not even English speaking. So there's a commonality between how they've overcome the technology platforms in India and how it could possibly be related to Africa. Then also studies about the African countries. I've done quite a lot of research on that, where I can just give you a few examples. For country, they call it the King's countries. It's Kenya, Ivory Coast, Nigeria, Ghana, and then obviously South Africa. There've been quite a lot of development in the King's countries. So they call them Kings specifically for a reason, but they have developed computer schools, quite a lot of infrastructure, which is very, very important in the technology, to enable technology. And also they have, and they've also launched quite a few innovative solutions, especially also in agriculture, but mostly in banking and mobile banking and as mobile banking solutions. So why would mobile banking suddenly jump onto this map? Mobile banking is actually quite a very important component of agriculture and of the agricultural value chain. If you actually put a platform up for you to be able to trade in agriculture, you'll have to be able to trade securely, and you have to be able to trade on a platform where you can actually execute the transaction properly. So again, pockets of innovation and development within the technology space in these different countries have taken place, but it is nowhere near a solution for agriculture at this stage. Then also just some other very interesting, I've written so many things here. Like for instance, I can say that in countries that have made good progress would be around, for instance, Kenya. They produce cut flowers and they export the cut flowers, and they've been able to, through technology, just small pockets of technology implementation, increase their market with 1,200% between 1988 and 2014. Okay, so they started off very slow and then they moved faster and faster with technology. And I'm talking technology, if I'm going to talk about disruptive technology just now, but just in terms of technology, Rwanda, have grain production tripled between the year 2000 and 2014 to about 792,000 tons. Okay, so what does that really mean? It means that they are starting to wake up to technology. In African countries, the actual countries and agricultural departments are waking up to technology. Then one other very, very good, okay, maybe just some more examples, just to show off a little bit about Africa and the world. 5% of Africa is actually under irrigation. So African land there's only 5% under irrigation, where $35 billion is spent on food imports into Africa, and it is actually not really necessary, because a whole lot of, we have the perception, like my dad used to say, oh, we're poor Celise, we can't actually buy anything. We have the perception that the African farmer is actually poor. Yes, the African farmer appear to be poor, but they actually have enough to eat. The issue is they are poor in terms of monetary value. They don't have money to spend on anything because they don't have access to markets to double their income. That is the main issue that I've found so far in terms of my research. So then also 16% of sub-Saharan Africa roads are paved. So in other words, you've got only 16% of the roads that are actually paved roads. But that doesn't really matter. It matters in agriculture, because you have to take your product to the market, or you must be able to go and show your product to the market. But what can technology do about it? If you just start to let your mind go, you will find a whole lot of ideas around how can technology improve or assist the specific scenario. The world of export fell from 7% to 2% in agriculture by 2009. Why are we no longer exporting as much as we used to? The World Bank predicts that with technology injection into the agricultural industry, we will have a $1 trillion export by 2030. So these are the kind of stats and figures that is being put out there. But what is the secret recipe? What is that secret recipe, and to what extent will we be able to implement that recipe into Africa, into agriculture, to be able to make that huge difference? So the vision is that for this study, I would like to find that secret recipe. I would like to find the recipe in the form of a framework or a platform, and also I would like to have a vision and a visionary or an aspirational statement out there that this specific framework or platform could possibly double the income of the African farmer. And that is a significant statement to make, but it is possible if you start to think about the possibilities that have been put out there, but it is not actually researched to the degree that you can actually implement it. And that's really my take on this. So I think that was that question, why am I interested in the study and what am I hoping to achieve? So any questions so far from anyone?
Really?
It's quite interesting, area of farming, of course, could be interesting as well. I think it would be worthwhile to do a study or a comparison of developed countries' agriculture.
Yeah.
And I'm saying extremely developed, US
Yes.
versus Africa, because it's very interesting. The US has got 350 million people, Africa's got 800 million.
Yes.
Africa's got 5 times the land, and yet agricultural production is a problem.
Fraction, yeah.
To the US. What's different? How they do it. It's access to land, access to capital. And how they actually co-opt their businesses. So 20 farmers will actually put their farms in and have equity share in the big farm.
Exactly.
And then share resources. So shared sellers, one tractor, 2 tractors, instead of 20.
Yes.
So they use their capital much more efficiently. And even on the stock exchange to find capital. So the biggest companies on the stock exchange are actually farmers in the US. Yet the land is so much smaller. And there's so much less farmers. So it's effectiveness and productivity.
That's correct.
Very good. And then also, just to add on to what you were saying, I forgot just to say it, but it only comes in when we talk about this now, is really the Alibaba.com model. So Jack Ma and Alibaba, they started just over 10 years ago, and they have really turned the Chinese economy on its head with a platform where they have created an open market for the Chinese specifically to be able to trade. And I'm talking about Chinese. I mean, Chinese are not always all sophisticated city dwellers. I mean, there are vast amounts, billions of them out there, actually sitting in rural areas, very, very unsophisticated. And he's actually. So I'm also bringing in that model to do the comparison. So I like your comparison as well, and that was also the comparison that I'm bringing to the study. Yes.
How's the management of the technology? Because the problem is to manage the technology to be most effective in the actual wherever you do it. And that's the problem that needs to be addressed.
Absolutely. So I just want to say on that issue, when we speak on later, I've got the different theories that I'm using, and one of them was actually to look at it's called an RPV framework, where management of technology is a specific component. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different components, and management of it is actually one of the components that needs to be at a level of maturity. So if you ask again, what is the secret recipe? I have to find the secret recipe, and management of technology is one of the items that actually of ingredients that needs to be in that recipe. So you're quite right in asking that question. There are a number of others as well that impacts that is actually the reason why there is not that I'm putting together as okay. So these are the components of the secret recipe. One of them is definitely and also what you mentioned in terms of capital and raising of capital.
Yeah. Okay. What? Want to continue?
The next.
So why do you call it secret?
Pardon?
Why do you call the recipe secret?
Okay, because let's call it secret because somehow in Africa we are struggling to utilize technology to the level that it actually does make a big difference in agriculture. It is. That's why I'm putting it. It's unknown. It's not known to. It's not my secret. It's going to be everybody's. The secret is going to be out there somehow.
It's not known to Africa.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. No, it's not known to Africa. And
Well, I think there are two things. I think it's not hidden.
Yeah, it's not
but
hidden.
it's not yet known.
Yeah, not known, yes. That's
Yes.
the point. That's actually what I'm trying to
Yeah.
So that whole secret is a little bit not academic.
No, that's a good point.
It's
It's not a secret. Yeah, it's a good point.
A recipe.
Yeah. It's a recipe.
It's a recipe that's bound for that region,
Yeah.
because regions differ.
Yes. Yeah, true.
I think it's a magic recipe.
Over here?
Wouldn't that really also benefit us in a way by negotiating with the World Trade Organization, partnering with them in order to get assistance?
So one other ingredient in the recipe is trade agreements.
Yeah.
So it is very, very important that we have, the more trade agreements we have in place, the more it creates opportunities for the farmer or the agricultural businessman to trade globally.
And with us also becoming a BRICS member, I know we're still very small in the food chain, so to say.
Yes.
But we also have access to a lot more capabilities.
Yes.
And, access to, for instance, Brazil, India, and we can then form.
Yes.
See what we can do from there.
Hopefully we won't export rotten meat.
As opposed to before, when we were.
Yeah. No, that's a good point as well. Thank you.
Okay. Right. Oh, over here?
You wanted to
Comment?
say something?
No, I was just, I was going to make another point actually, but the issue of trade agreements, this is actually very important for inter-Africa trade. Several years ago when I was at Standard Bank, we worked on a project with the World Trade Organization and the World Trade Center to try and get more, just trade in food substances within Africa. The amount of food which is exported from Africa to Europe and then re-imported has been processed. And yet many of the adjacent countries, there would be processing facilities available. So there's a tremendous need for inter-trade relations. And so more than just inter-trade agreements, bilaterals or even multilateral agreements within SADC or within the East African Trading Organization. In addition to trade agreements, one also needs to have trade finance systems which are sympathetic towards this. And the lack of trade finance within Africa is an enormous barrier to Africa's growth.
Okay. So you've got a few elements for your recipe. Okay. All right. I think let's continue. We will pause again for further questions. You want to? Yeah.
Yes. So I'm going to follow a mixed method and approach, and starting off with a positivist, quantitative, deductive approach, and then I will end up in a interpretive, qualitative, inductive approach. So what?
Sorry, you said is it interrupting? Disruptive, yeah. You haven't spoken about that.
I'm
She's going according to my instructions. Emeka, give her a chance.
I thought methodology is the last step.
no.
Yes.
So they have to discuss the whole idea.
Okay, so I'll get to the. So there are definitely some theories that I'm actually going to investigate several theories and actually looking at the study or the disruptive technology possibilities through different lenses. So it's like a Polaroid. It's not a one pair of spectacles. It's going to be quite a few different pairs of showing lenses that I'm going to be looking at disruptive technology. So disruptive is, if you want to know what do I mean with disruptive, or what is meant by disruptive, it means that, for an example, if you look at what happened in Kenya with M-Pesa, the whole mobile banking platform, and it disrupted an industry. So disruption means you're using technology to disrupt the industry. That is very simplistically put. But if you delve deeper to understand, were those, and I will never use that word secret again, what were those unknown elements that you actually, that made up the disruption? Those are the things that we need to be viewing from different angles. And that's why I'm jumping into now, okay, so I'm going to use this approach, but in the very first phase, I'm going to be, I'm proposing, and I'm sort of on my way there, to look at it first from a quantitative perspective to see, but looking at these lenses, what were the elements that were investigated that, that I can use in my quantitative study to be able to come to the point to understand what is that disruptive
what is the disruptive
nature of technology? What should it be? And now you come to those recipe elements. It's like a golden thread that goes right through the study, because you start off with your problem, but actually, if you look at it through different lenses, and I've been pulling my hair out, because every time I look at it from a different angle, I see different things. I see, and so I've selected a few for a few reasons. I'm not going to go. I probably won't, unless somebody convinces me to go and pull in another angle or another lens. I will probably, consider it. But so the lenses are. That's where. Well, when you're asking me about disruption, it actually is. It depends on what lens you're looking to the technology through. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm actually following you. I need to understand that before you can go
into the methodology.
If I continue, then we will talk.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I ask, will those
yes.
Different lenses be context specific? So will you be able to go to an environment and say, this lens applies here, and therefore the characteristics of that lens, so it becomes almost context specific? Of course, you say you have different things, and so if you pick a few symptoms that add up to that lens, then obviously you want to find the appropriate solution. Or do you think it's that stable that you're going to have, well, you've already said it won't be one, like 4 characteristics that will be applied universally?
So the whole idea is it is a industry perspective, and also a continent perspective. So from a continent is Africa. Comparing it with other continents is one dimension of looking at it. It will be Africa. It will be Africa specific because I am making it Africa specific. But it could possibly be nuances from other continents that I'm taking and baking it into the cake. Does it make sense? And from an industry perspective, I've started off the study actually, to be honest, in the banking industry. And I didn't know that you were also in Standard Bank. I didn't see you there, but obviously, we've got so many Standard Bank people there. I've been working in the banking finance industry for numbers of years, and I started looking at this kind of a study in the banking industry. And I realized that there are actually components of the study that is generic. It's actually, it can be used cross-border of industries as well as continents.
Yeah.
So I would like to try and make the recipe more generic than specific. Because of the size of what we actually deal with. We have a technology view, but in a specific industry or sector, you can say maybe, and then you actually have it also on a continent.
Just before we continue, I just want to remind you that last time, for those of you who were here, we had a student who was almost complete. In fact, he's submitted, okay? And that contrasts with a student like Zulise, who's just started, all right? So I think one should be careful not to try and preempt her findings and to put her on the spot, because she's got to find it out, okay? So we've got to find a whole lot of it, of what we're talking about. We're jumping ahead to where we want to go with this study, and for me, it's just a sign of how exciting this study is. But yeah, so let's just be gentle on our student.
I don't feel threatened, it's fine. I'm going to fight till the bitter end.
So just an observation. What could be regarded as a driver for American success, if you study economic history, was the development of the railroad
Yes.
from east to west. And that was a driver that really enabled them. So that was the infrastructure that enabled. So when I look at what you're saying, I think possibly just to look at it from a view where you can use technology in order to leapfrog bottlenecks.
That's
and
correct. Yeah.
Challenges within the existing, say, supply chain or procurement or.
I like that, leapfrog.
Yeah. So indeed, I think the cell phone industry is actually a very good example where it just leapfrogged a fixed line in Africa. So, which is I mean, it is a very interesting concept to incorporate. Okay. Do you want to continue? Oh, here's a hand. Sorry?
I think what would be important is if the nature of that leapfrog could be really innovative and looking at a new way of how agriculture, how farmers and markets can communicate and get together.
Yeah.
And so that one has an innovation which is possible because of the cell phone technology that is available. And that we do something in Africa which hasn't been done anywhere else in the world and gives us a competitive advantage so we become a global competitor and not just a follower. And I think if I can really challenge your project, you have an obligation to really make a massive contribution to
Absolutely, yeah. Janet?
Just to follow on from that, some theory you might find useful to look at is theory on reverse innovation.
Reverse innovation. Would you like to elaborate?
So reverse innovation essentially, maybe you don't remember reverse innovation simply refers to the fact that historically the world has worked in the following way. So the Western world, the developed world, would develop technology and they would use it and they would believe that at some stage the third world would be ready to use that technology.
Yes.
In actual fact, it never happened. And so the view now in terms of this notion of reverse innovation is that the third world has extremely different needs. We are also at a different stage in evolution. And so what is happening is that they now are taking the view that what happens if we innovate specifically for the third world? And there we're looking at big volumes and lower costs. So just one example, and there's a fabulous book on the topic. One example is that they developed handheld sonar machines. Now, I'm an ex-nurse. Sonar machines are this big, and they, they're found in big hospitals. These little handheld sonar machines were developed for, I think it was in India, and sold fabulously there in their millions, and when then taken back to the States, back to the first world, as an innovation there for use in ambulances.
My goodness.
So the notion is that if we can develop for our market, we potentially have something we can export back into the first world, which puts us back on the economic map.
Right.
So I think it's an extremely important concept. It's also an amazing, it's an amazing opportunity because the barriers to entry become lower, and so I think it's an extremely important.
Fantastic.
I can just add to that.
Yep.
And I think it's the same concept, but another way to refer to it is called frugal innovation. And frugal innovation is a topic in the innovation debate, and it's about exactly what Janet has mentioned, about products developed in a developing country are very often in need, and that's got basic features, and that then being made available to the developed world, where it can really explode into something very, very useful. So I think a very useful question in your research would be exactly that, the role of frugal innovation and how that can be used and scaled in addressing the problem.
Great.
There's a lot of literature on that.
Yep. Hand here, sorry.
Yes, I guess you're right to say no technology injection in agriculture will increase export. But if we take the specific case about Africa, we can really inject new technology, but if we not define policy in land, land reform, land ownership, because you can have all the good technology for Africa, but people are scared about land ownership. How are they going to invest? Tomorrow the land will be taken from them.
Yeah.
I don't know, you must also touch about it. Because because if you can think about the specific case about South Africa.
Yeah.
South Africa was because also speak about inter-African trade.
Yes.
South Africa was supplying the rest of Africa. But today they cannot supply in agriculture specific.
Yes.
But what made it to decline is about land ownership. Helping us to define the policy.
That's an interesting.
Because if the policy is not well defined, then you can speak to the investor in the policy. But then back in Africa, you're going to say, I can invest my money in technology, but tomorrow, after 10 years, 20 years, they come to grab everything from our kid.
Yeah, true, no? And yeah, that's a wonderful perspective on that. And I think that is a particular reality in South Africa, certainly. There may even in the rest of Africa, but certainly in South Africa currently, that issue of land ownership is a very, very big reality. Okay, good. Any other comments, questions at this stage over here?
Okay, it's just, we need to look at the situation and say, we grain crops for what reason? To feed the population. We need to look after our population first before we go into that. Yes, understand technology is, we've got to develop the technology and get into the forefront of what we develop. And we must keep in mind that we have to feed our own in order to prosper so that we can actually send our work into overseas. And we need to stay away from the GMOs. We've got to be GMO free, genetically modified. And if we don't do that, we're not going to sustain ourselves because we're just going to contaminate the land. And at the end, and also the other thing is we need to look at the seasonal cycles because as soon as you disrupt that cycle, then the bees are gone. So we need to find a way of bringing back.
Sure.
We have to look at what is essential.
Yeah. Can I?
I have heard it, but you just make one statement in terms of the balance between entrepreneurial spirit and the leapfrogging of technology. If we do not go to the modern Africa and look at the needs analysis with a totally different perspective, we may find ourselves with an old Western type approach to entrepreneurial spirit and leapfrog and dump kind of technology onto people who really may not need it.
Yes.
A simple example is if somebody would say, look, there's no oil anymore, we all go electrical motors. Looks very, very neat, but if you now really look at the need analysis and you take it through a balanced approach, that's when you create sustainability. And I think that's where my challenge that I see is job creation. That's the only way that I find where you can create jobs. If you can balance this need analysis, this entrepreneurial spirit with this enabling technologies, which are just becoming just too much.
So can I just add to that?
Yeah.
Looking at on that aspect of entrepreneurial way, you need to look at what type of the driver you're going to have. Is it going to be a company or a close corporation? People are now moving towards creating close corporations. There are quite a few close corporations which have been established that are actually, they've become feedlots. There are a few on the other side of Victoria that are actually doing this kind of work. So the community is involved because they all participate, but they're also self-feeding themselves in the process. And it works out a lot cheaper in the long run. You've got more buying power. You can sustain more. Because at the moment, you're selling to a supermarket chain, and what are they doing to you? They're saying, we'll pay you 120 days. So you're caught because you're going to sell to them because otherwise nobody will buy your product. So you have to find a way of cutting out that chunk of the middleman and start selling direct. It's like the guys just outside of Brits, what's that place called where the wind is?
Yeah.
Jasmine. I mean, if you look at what they've developed there, and you walk in there and actually get pretty bargain prices, and the stuff is fresh. It's not old stock. It's fresh.
Fair enough. Ready? And then we continue.
I think I have to agree with what you said earlier on. It's a very exciting study, so we tend to want to hijack it.
Yes.
The other thing is, a lot of what is said, I think, is covered in the concept of this disruptive technology, where you remove a lot of the obstacles, where you connect the farmer directly to the salesperson, and you manage the financial transaction. You take all the burdens and licenses and policy constraints out of the way. I think possible advice then is, having heard what everybody says, it will be important to carefully scope what you do. Otherwise you'll be researching for a long time.
Ever.
As I'm sitting here listening, and I love what everybody is saying, very interesting. I mean, those are all I've thought about this for quite a long time. I mean, this angle, that angle, this angle, that angle. But what I like is that disruption happens not across the board, across the continent, it can happen in an industry like Uber or, Airbnb. And we always like to call out these names like they are kind of on top of our mind. Maybe it will be like disruptive technologies to Lee's Botwood sometime, whatever. But that's what you were asking me earlier on. It links to what you asked, because how specific are you going to get? It's got to be specific eventually to make an impact. So you can say, okay, in general, disruptive technology is going to be applied, and this is an example of it, and there's an example, and this and that. Even what you were saying is good, and what he was saying is good, and everybody is saying is good. But what is that specific thing that one would actually take and run with that will actually that will create that unicorn in Africa, in agriculture? What will it be? And that excites me a lot, because I would like to be that unicorn, of course, But I mean, the thing is, what will it actually be that will bring that specific disruption?
Yeah.
And there isn't such something out there as yet specific that can bring that.
Hendra, you had your hand? You had your hand.
Very quick thought.
Sure.
I don't know if you're incorporating it already, but the role of ecosystems and communities.
Yes.
So the building of those communities and the role of the ecosystems, the value chains in there, the ecosystems that you've got that's constructed around that, and how that forms clusters in supporting and moving forward that capability.
It is actually one of the theories from Brenner, which are, that whole ecosystem development is also one of the lenses that I'm looking at it. It is important because you get so many different ecosystems, not just economically, but also, from a user perspective. So which one are you going to select, and where will you make the biggest impact? That is what should be the outcome. Hopefully, when the study is complete, there should be an outcome that says this will be the most disruptive recipe. No secret to anyone.
This is what I wanted to come in here. This concept of disruptive. I believe, and also disruptive technology, as we are defining these two words, disruptive technology.
Yes.
Yeah, this seems to be the main thrust of your thinking. Yeah, and we're talking about technology and all this stuff. You are assuming that there is an order, there's an existing order, or a harmony, which is not effective in Africa. And you are assuming that there's a need to disrupt it.
Yes, I am assuming that based on a number of facts collected to strengthen that assumption.
Yes. So now, if we agree with that assumption, have to take from that assumption, then I don't know whether it will be appropriate for you to continue to insist on technology or to amplify the word technology, because technology is not only what you are going to be dealing with here. So I think we need to be dealing with you mentioned earlier about the framework. So the framework is for productive agriculture in Africa, which is going to either make us competitive with other parts of the world. So this framework, technology is going to be part of it. Though you have now called it recipe, okay?
Yes,
So
you're right, because it is not this technology.
Yeah, so technology is definitely going to be part of it, or you are assuming that technology is going to be part of it. So there will be other things, somebody has mentioned policy, somebody will probably be mentioning about entrepreneurship.
Culture, strategy, capabilities, yeah, yes.
Together,
Correct.
which is going to be that recipe
Yes,
you're talking about.
absolutely.
Would not require you to continue to insist on technology.
No. Exactly. Well spotted.
So what I'm actually trying to help you here is
Yeah.
to help you to articulate the
Yes.
point, so that you will be able to put all these things under it without emphasizing technology.
Yes.
I agree.
Do you get a point?
Yes,
now?
yes.
Wait, before you go.
It's like when you're sitting in church, I receive.
Because I'm trying to help you, okay?
Yeah, no, that's good.
You know, if you look at what is, if you read more literature about what's happening in America, their family is highly subsidized.
Just repeat what you were saying. No, say again. You were.
Farmers are subsidized in America.
Yeah.
They're subsidy.
Yes.
Okay, so they farm, they are encouraged to farm at any cost and bring it out and sell at any cost to the people, so that feeding food will be cheap. I think food is the cheapest thing in America, I believe. So everybody can afford. But the people who are farming are not farming based on a particular cost. They farm because they know that they have to feed America. Whatever thing that comes out of it, it can be thrown away. They throw into the sea most of the time. So when you talk about competitive edge, you are competing with the other world. Do you think we are going to afford to subsidize farmers in Africa? Or not that we are going to afford.
Yeah.
Would you incorporate it into this recipe you're talking about?
Yeah.
You are going to talk about competitiveness. So I'm just trying to, I've been listening to you, so that I'm trying to figure out how you are going to, put these things together, so that it will be academic and at the same time effective.
I like
people are going
it.
to
Yeah.
challenge what you are going to say, because there are examples all over. Just like what somebody said earlier, that you have to do case study. I mean, do example of what happens to them. So like, do some case studies. What's happening in America, what's happening in other places, what's happening. So do a case study of this thing that you want to be disrupted in Africa.
Yeah.
This thing that exists in Africa that you are looking to disrupt. You have to do a case study of it and compare it with what is happening in other places before we can now talk about what we need to do, whether we can adapt, whether we can innovate, or whether we can disrupt or whatever.
Yes.
So that's my contribution.
Thank you. That's excellent, Emeka. Thank you very much. There were one or two people who still wanted to say something. Yep. And then, Billy, yeah?
I think your concept of, just use the word magic recipe, is an important component of a concept which I have been developing, which will hopefully at some stage, Ronald will be a subject of my own thesis. I'll submit to you to get it approved. But just to say what this concept is about, just give a bit of background. As an economist, traditionally, economists say that there are three factors of production: land, labor, and capital. Increasingly, people are talking about a fourth factor of production, which is technology. And what is technology? It's the method that you use and the ratios that you apply to each of the previous three factors: land, labor, and capital. How you bring them together, that's technology. And just as the first industrial revolution really gave birth to the third factor of production, which was capital. The concept of capital was not really all that relevant before the first industrial revolution. We're now in the fourth industrial revolution, and it's my theory which hopefully will be the subject of
Well,
my
I
visit
hope
now,
so.
is that the fourth industrial revolution has given birth to a fifth factor of production. And that fifth factor of production, the word I've chosen to describe this fifth factor of production is intermediation. In the digital age, it's possible to link suppliers and consumers in a way which has never been done before.
It's true.
And in a way which is so innovative, so productive, that I believe it's worthy of the status of being elevated to the fifth factor of production, intermediation. I developed the word from a banking background where one spoke about disintermediation, which is where people go behind the banks. But the banks are basically people who bring together lenders and borrowers. But in this case, intermediation is the right word for what your magic recipe is. It brings together farmers with ultimately with consumers
The market,
of food,
yeah.
with the market.
Yeah.
But not just, perhaps going right through to the end. So I would like maybe to collaborate with you.
Okay, we must talk about it. Yeah. Okay, final. Willie, do you want to?
I think one complexity in this intermediation of farming products is logistics. How do I get the product that's on board as a fresh product?
Logistics.
My point is more about, when you talk about technology in agriculture, I think you have to scope it more narrow to say, is it finance technology? Is it farming technology?
Yes.
It's a very interesting concept now that Kenya actually produces double the amount of chickens than South Africa. How? There's no social market. The market is full of the size in terms of the consumers, and they export all of that to the UK. So there's actually UK farmers who buy land
In Kenya.
and the reason they buy it there is because of the climate.
Yeah.
You don't have to air condition or heat or cool down the
True.
chicken farms, where they hold them. It reduces their operating costs by 30-40%.
Good Lord.
So, by just having the chicken farms on the right place on the equator, it reduces the input costs hugely. So the most productive farms are northern Brazil and Kenya for chickens in the world. And it is very interesting. It's got nothing to do with technology. It's actually the absence of technology that is more productive.
Yes, no, I think you're right. I think you're right. And I think when and I hope you also understand it too, as this such, because I think often we think about technology with a capital T. But technology is often that lower t, lowercase t, which means it's not only an actual digital thing, but I think you are looking at digital aspects. Yes. But it's not necessarily always a digital or a ITC or that type of thing, but it is a new way of doing things. It's a new way of putting a system together or whatever. That could also be seen to be a technology. But I think in your case, you are specifically looking at the digital space. So that's the scoping, and I agree. I think what is a problem at this stage of a PhD is to keep it contained and not to allow yourself to be pulled apart in so many different directions. But I think you're okay as far as that's concerned.
What is it that I'm going to be putting together? How will I contain this animal? It's enormous. It's enormous. The more you the deeper you delve, the more you find other things that are more interesting than the previous thing that you've already captured.
It's true.
So, to give you just I would love. It's an open invitation. Please bring your ideas after the session. Don't come and sit just only here and put something together. Bring it, send it to me. You can have my email address. Anything that you can think of, just send it to me, because it will actually just help me to construct, restructure, and sometimes I may have missed that ingredient in that recipe.
Secret sauce.
Just I'm going to make two other comments. Botswana, I've actually, to be honest with you, I started this in a kind of a mode to fish fashion already, but so I've been testing my boundaries in terms of how will this animal work. And in Botswana, for an example, they've got this, not only in Botswana. In fact, I've actually found out that they've actually got it in other countries as well. They've got, they call it contract farming, where what they do is the government buys seed, fertilizer, all sorts of specific items, which they then give to the farmers. And the farmer has a captive market in terms of selling it back to government.
Okay.
And government buys it to distribute it again. But then at the same time, what they do, distribute it, meaning the produce, the produce that what actually comes from from what they've subsidized. It's huge subsidy. And then what they do is they also sell it on to other countries. So they also put it out there to trade the specific produce. So it's a good model. That's one of those models that I think that are already kind of starting to work. And it's working through the Botswana Agricultural Marketing Board, which is a good one. And then just on the other thing, talking about the digitization disruption, very last point, you're also looking at it from a conservation of resources perspective, which is another kind of a lens. Looking at it from an ecology of systems perspective, how does it work to get to the different stages? Disruptive innovation theory, critical realism theory, digital options theory, and the digital quotient, where to see of these specific ingredients, how much must be put into this recipe, and so the levels of maturity of these specific items. Hopefully next time.
Exciting stuff. So Sulice has entertained us with technology and innovation and perhaps a whole lot of other things, but wonderful. I can't wait to see the outcome of the study. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations.